So how about that Agatha All Along? You've been watching it?
No, because if I want to see her bits and pieces, there are better movies for that.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
This is another witch series.
Yes, it is.
We just had a witch series with the Acolyte.
Specifically, it's another gay witch series.
But they just did one with the Acolyte.
I know.
In the same year.
And it was so popular, it's not getting a second season. And guess what? Same thing with Agatha All Along. It's not getting a second season.
Was her character interesting in WandaVision? Was she like a witch or something? Or
well, remembering that was the last Disney Plus show that I watched. Yes, I actually did like her character. I liked what they were doing with that. But what I didn't like was I felt that the whole series was a bait and switch. And they dropped little Easter eggs and things. I don't want to call them member berries because it's not like they're hearkening, no pun intended, hearkening back to anything from the MCU films. But for Marvel Comics fans, there was a lot of great little Easter eggs that got us all excited. There was the implication that it was going to be Mephisto, but no, it was Agatha all along. And it's like, no.
That's why they call it that's why the series is called that.
Yeah.
Welcome everybody to Geeky Geezers. I'm your host, Agent Boomer. This is my co-host, Pacelli.
I certainly am. Hello.
And welcome, Chris P. Just saying hi. Okay.
Yep.
Welcome, Big Al. Have a great show, Geezers. Hope everyone is happening.
I hope you don't mind that I was in there saying hi to people in your voice because I have those administrator rights.
When do I ever say greetings? Greetings.
See, this is I respond back with the way they say. So if they say greetings, I say greetings. If they say hail, I say
hail.
Whatever. Yeah.
It's like Hail Caesar. Welcome, Netter of Netters Network.
Or hail to the chief.
And you can check out Netter's Thursday things this week, right?
Yep.
Every Thursday. And Enigma Severus. I made it. I'm not going home in a bag. That's good. Where were you? Yikes. Were you overseas in some excursion? Well, thank you for being here. Space Invaders quote. Oh, I see. Space Invaders. I remember that movie. That's what that line is from. You ever see Space Invaders?
I probably did because that sounds familiar, but I do not recall.
Yeah. It's this goofy, like these aliens are going to invade the Earth thing, but they look kind of like the old school Martian types, and kids. I don't know how kids get involved, but I remember there was a scene where these old people said, "Remember when they did the War of the Worlds broadcast? You were out there with your shotgun and a bucket on your head." I remember that. And then then the old people, they see a UFO fly by, and the old woman says, "I'll get the bucket." it was a funny little like family comedy movie.
I love that,
but it had aliens in it. Unscripted raid, welcome Curtis Selby. Thank you, deleted scenes. Zetopia, welcome. Depensec, welcome. Dante Berry Sports Highlights, welcome. Is he one of yours?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't like it saying it that way, but he's on my stream right now.
I mean, I'm saying that's where you know him from. Okay. Jesse,
I don't want to lay claim to people like some sort of, ownership.
You're right. We don't own anyone in the audience here. Welcome, deleted scenes.
But
welcome,
we love every single one of you like family.
Yes. Welcome, Rosefire. Break out the togas, spread out the red carpet, and give 2 thumbs up. All hail the Emperor's Agent Boomer Pacelli. It's interesting. I was watching a couple episodes of I, Claudius this week. Remember that show?
Oh, yeah.
That might be it'd be a good old days coming up. I, Claudius.
Absolutely.
Man, everyone was knocking everybody off on that show. That was like the Sopranos 2,000 years ago.
Well, and see, that's a great example of, there's nothing new under heaven. That whole well, I mean, they even said this. actually George R.R. Martin himself said this about Game of Thrones. He said, you know, he was very much basing that on the War of the Roses and actual historical events, you know, and this kind of backstabbing politics is not something, you know, that's new in 2024. This goes back to the dawn of man, I think.
Yes. Also PlayStation 6. What the F, Sony? Yeah, I hear you're gonna take out a second mortgage on your house. I'm gonna actually be a little more reasonable to Sony in this case. PlayStation 6 is in development. Yeah, because whenever you have your new console out, you're always having to work on developing your next console. In fact, I remember with the Nintendo 64, they started work on the Nintendo 64 right after the launch of the Super Nintendo. We're like, yeah, as soon as that came out, we're working on Nintendo 64, because sometimes it takes years for those things to get made. But I think Sony's a little late on the PlayStation 6 actually, for the sound of it. We'll get into that later. But
well, yeah, and then we'll talk about pricing and if consoles are even worth it anymore.
Sashi. Not when they're too much like PCs. What made consoles interesting is that they were their own thing.
Right.
Greetings, everyone. Just passing by before I have to go ready for work. Well, have a good day at work, Sashi. I'll be heading to work in, I guess, 12 hours. Yeah. I checked out WandaVision when they tried to let us believe they were going to introduce mutants, and even Peter's Quicksilver, Feige would never introduce mutants like that. It was just marketing. Yeah, well, there's a lot of empty promises, and we're gonna.
What's really a problem with that is they, and this is not to be unfair to the fans, but you get a lot of fan theories, and they come up with ideas for stories that are better than what we actually end up getting. And in situations like that, it's like, you know what? We don't even need you anymore. Our own fan fiction would be better than your BS. So to heck with y'all.
Welcome, Space Fraggle. Thank you for joining us. And I think we also had Rosefire was saying she's reading Crazy Rich Asians, saying it's a lot like that Victorian era intrigue. She thinks it's like a very popular series. I saw the movie. Do you know people got confused by that title?
What title?
Crazy Rich Asians.
I don't see why.
They think, well, I'm seeing a lot of the rich, but not much of the crazy. And it's like, no, it's they're crazy rich.
Yeah.
Not that they're crazy and rich.
Well, it could be that too, but yes.
No, I mean, I don't know. It was pretty good. You got to see what Singapore was like. I think that's where it took place. But here we go. Geeky Geezers. Talk about the good old days. What are we talking about tonight? I guess we already know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can see it on the screen. So, you know, yeah, absolutely.
Excalibur.
I love that movie. I really did.
What did you see it around when it came out? Was this like a big deal?
What year did it come out?
Oh, when did Excalibur come out? I want to say early 80s. Hold on. I should know the year on this. Excalibur movie. 1981.
You know, I think I saw it on cable. So back then it wasn't like it is now where, you know, it leaves the theater in 3 months and then the 4th month it's on streaming. It was like a year or two before it made it to cable. But once it did, it was in regular rotation. So that's probably when I saw it. I'm pretty sure I did see it on cable.
Let's see. You love that post. Forged by a god, foretold by a wizard, found by a king.
That's interesting. Does the idea that it was forged by a god actually show up on? I mean, is it ever mentioned in?
I don't think it's the Lady of the Lake, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What is the Lady of the Lake?
The Lady of the Lake is implied from folklore anyway to be one of the Fae. So just like Morgan Le Fay,
right?
You know, one of the
okay,
one of the others, or of the realm of fairy, and that would be true of Maryland as well.
Well, I remember on the Merlin miniseries, one of the big things was the interjection between the pagan world and the new Christian world coming into play in Britain.
True,
you know,
true.
And that's always a big thing. But I don't know if I saw that as much in this movie. But let's go ahead and get started. Look at that. Come on. There's King Arthur.
Yeah, absolutely.
Played by, I don't remember, but great cast in this. We have Gabriel Byrne playing Uther Pendragon. Remember?
Yep.
King Arthur's dad. As we know in this movie, he becomes the king of England. He's going to get all the tribes, the British, the English tribes to unite, and but then he sees Igraine, and yeah, you can't marry Igraine. She's already married, and no, he don't like that, and so he makes a deal with Merlin.
Yep.
For him to disguise him as her husband, and then whatever comes of that, you and I own. That's what Merlin tells him. Remember that? And of course, by I think he sent his Igraine's husband out on the front lines, and he gets killed. And basically, they know he betrayed one of his men, so then the alliance falls apart. He gets killed, takes the sword that he got from the Lady of the Lake, Excalibur, and shoves it into a stone. Remember that?
Yep.
And who then retrieves it from his son, his young son, Arthur?
Yep.
There we go.
And he doesn't even realize, first, he doesn't realize he's the son of Uther Pendragon. Secondly, he's not looking to draw the sword from the stone to become king. He in this story, his adoptive brother, who's the elder, has no sword, so he sends Arthur, who is his squire, you got to go get me a sword. And he's looking for a sword. He can't find a sword. He says, oh yeah, there's one over there in that stone. He goes, he pulls it out. Here you go, I brought you a sword. And everyone's like, where did you get that? I got it from the stone over there. And nobody believes him. And of course they say, okay, you got to put the sword back so that we have a chance to draw the sword from the stone to be king. And nobody is able to draw it out again except
Arthur. What's interesting about this movie is, do you remember in the Sword in the Stone Disney movie, Kay is kind of presented as kind of a jerk, right? Kind of a bully. But in this, when Arthur pulls it from the stone and they say, Kay, did you pull it from the stone? He says, yes. And I mean, no, like he corrects himself. It's like,
I love that.
He's not really a bad guy in this version.
That is some great storytelling, right? Because well, what is the implication? He's getting ready to take credit, and he's like, I can't do that. That's not right. No. But you see the temptation that every man would go through. Oh, sure. I drew the sword.
But he corrected himself.
Right? And he's like, no, I didn't. My younger brother did.
He probably thought about saying this, like, no, I better not.
Which is like, which causes everyone to look and go, which leads to, what would you expect? There's some people that go, well, if he drew the sword from the stone, let's just see him do it again. Well, he did it. He's the king, and they swear fealty to him. And there's a lot that don't. They're like, no, I'm not going to swear fealty to this boy because of some, hoodoo, kind of, woo-woo thing, and it leads to war.
Don't forget to mention the fantastic score. Yes.
Carmina Burana. This is where a whole generation became infatuated with Carmina Burana. And I would encourage you to look into that piece of music, do your research, see where it comes from and how it translates, and have a bit of a laugh.
Yeah. So some classical pieces mixed in with an original score by Trevor Jones. We also had Siegfried's funeral music from Die Götterdämmerung by Richard Wagner.
Right.
Look at that. So great score. Just a fantastic movie all around. I can never remember how to recite the spell. The Lady of the Lake.
Yeah,
is a Celtic goddess. Her name actually appears in Celtic folklore before the story of Arthur. Interesting.
Yeah, see, I know there's a lot that goes
interesting
beyond it. I was just wondering if it was ever mentioned specifically within the framework of the film.
I don't know, because the movie, what I find interesting about the movie is I feel like you're just placed in this world. They're not doing a ton of exposition on you.
No,
it's not like, and to be fair, they've done this in other adaptations of Arthur, and I don't mind it there. But in this, they kind of just throw you into it.
Yeah.
This is kind of a harsh world, but probably a lot better
this,
than the
this scene
was
is
in.
brilliant, right? Because you get, this is especially for those that were at the right age, as I was when this was released, just getting into Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yep.
The idea of the magical sword, right? How does that work? You know, in game mechanics, you get a +2, +3 on your to hit roll. But what does that look like in an actual fictional setting? This kind of establishes that. Like the sword kind of takes over and gives him a bit of a buff, right? But here we see he's bested and he's like, okay, I yield, but I can't swear fealty to someone who's not a knight. It falls under that whole chivalric code. And he's like, you're right. I'm not a knight. Okay. Any knight can knight, someone else, make him a knight. So he literally turns Excalibur over to him and says, so knight me.
This almost reminds me of a certain scene from the Bible, New Testament, with the baptism of John the Baptist.
Right, where he says to
Jesus.
Jesus says, you've got to baptize me. It has to be done, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not worthy. Do it anyway, Yeah. And you're right. This is, I think that's intentional. I think this is meant to mirror that. And the knight has that moment of, he's just given me his sword. I could strike him down if I want to, but it's very clear that the sword won't let that happen. He's now a part of something bigger than himself.
Yes. Great class. That was Nigel Terry, I believe. I'm getting the name right, as King Arthur, right? Nigel Terry. Nicole Williamson as Merlin, Nicholas Clay as Lancelot. We'll get them in a minute. Cheryl Lungi as Guinevere, Helen Mirren as Morgana, Liam Neeson as Gawain. They didn't do the Green Knight thing in this, but I guess that's the knight that Liam Neeson was playing in this. Patrick Stewart is in this too. I don't have a picture of him, as Leon de Grance. So you'll see some French.
The other thing to keep in mind, if you want to do, and guys, I love that you guys are all throwing in a great deal of detail here. The Arthurian legend is drawn from a bunch of different stuff kind of mashed together, right? And I think that the writer and the director on this film did a great job of drawing from all of those and weaving a very interesting tapestry. Even when you get to the things like the Lady of the Lake and the Sword and the Stone, there's arguments to be made that there was actually two different swords, right? And they kind of cut through all that. No, it's Excalibur, and here's how both of those story elements work together. There's a little bit of creative fiction here,
Sure.
And I think it works. I think it works in an excellent way. I also saw somebody mention something about the Sword and the Stone from Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I read The Once and Future King that I realized that both the stories in Excalibur and the story that you see in the Disney story kind of work together. They shouldn't, but they do.
Isn't the musical Camelot, isn't that also based on Once and Future King?
Yes, it
the later parts
is.
of that, and of course there we have the lovely Guinevere. They're getting married to Arthur there. Interesting, instead of a suit, he's wearing a full suit of armor. So I guess he is wearing a suit, actually. I didn't think about that. Yes.
Well,
And,
what is a suit? I mean, you got to start thinking about, you start to realize the concept of the suit. The suit, right, is a formal type of clothing, and it symbolically represents the suit of armor, right? Just like Esquire, the squire, the knight that you hire to represent you in court. All of that stuff kind of falls together. Welcome, Horizon Talker.
Oh, I see. In many versions, it's a reverse where he gets Sword in the Stone and then it goes to Lady Lake. Because the problem is there's two things where the sword comes from. Is it from the Lady of the Lake, or is it from the or was it in the stone?
And again, the argument can possibly be that they were actually two different swords.
Oh, that's
know?
interesting.
Yeah.
There's Lancelot. Get a bit of a
flawed hero.
Flawed hero. Yes, he was. What was interesting about him, very dangerous character in the first book, but Arthur manages to best him in a fight, and then that's when he swears loyalty to Arthur, which I thought was interesting.
Which is very an interesting parallel, if you want to draw it, to Robin Hood and Little John.
Interesting,
right?
Yeah, kind of.
The battle, the duel, so to speak, on the log, right?
I remember that. Yeah. But it kind of a similar type of scene, yeah. But just the cinematography in this, the costuming,
those are absolutely so that is a style, and I don't know that much about armor. I would say go check out Shadiversity and some others for more scholarly information about, and even Metatron for more scholarly insights on armor. But my understanding is this style of armor is from much later than when this should be happening. But again, this is a fantasy thing. You've got to think like the Renaissance painters would oftentimes represent biblical characters using motifs of their day, so yeah.
Oh, Cheryl Lunley and Nigel Terry were in a TV series called Covington Cross, a medieval drama, sadly short-lived. Oh, that would have been interesting.
Covington Cross, yeah.
Welcome, Curtis Selby.
Welcome, Curtis.
But yeah, we have there's Liam Neeson's Gawain, and we have the lovely Morgan Le Fay, played by Helen Mirren, in the background there.
Midnight's Edge's own Helen Mirren, by the way.
Look at her there. Wow.
Yeah. Oh, the boob armor that really upsets some people.
It looks nice on her. Anyway, but we have
go do a search, Shadiversity boob armor. They've got a whole series about the historicalness of boob armor,
But there's Morgan Le Fay. She's she knows that I think she knows
you get
that
this
she's his half sister. Yeah,
you get this and from folklore there is the implication that and I have to believe this is where Tolkien draws some of the and I forget what they are, the types of creatures that Sauron and Gandalf and they're these supernatural beings, like I guess you could analogize them to angels or demons, but in this case I think this is where that comes from, this idea that Merlin and Morgana are these kinds of fairy folk, right? These not really human, but taking the form of human and walking among human type beings. The Valar and the Maiar. Thank you, Curtis Selby. I knew someone would shout it out. And if someone else got it before him, I'm sorry. It's just the first one I saw. You guys don't know how, unless you're doing YouTube streams, you don't know how difficult it is to follow the chat while you're trying to do a show.
It can be tricky, but a dream to some.
My point, my quick point is to the chat. Please don't have anybody feel slighted if I miss a comment or whatever. It's just luck of the draw what I see, unless of course you drop a few coins, which highlights it. Not that I am, well, yeah, I guess I probably kind of am hinting you could always do that, but you don't have to. I'm doing the best I can.
She is both DC and Marvel Comics. She showed up as a villain in Justice League episodes. The demon ran into her, the character of the demon.
I only know what Jesse is referring to from in the case of Marvel, I forget what the name of the reference materials. It was Who's Who in the DC universe, but Marvel had their own version of that. And I remember getting those and reading them religiously. I mean that figuratively, of course. because I was interested, and that's where I learned a lot of the lore from things like X-Men and even Avengers and whatnot. Because really, I think a lot of people that follow us know I really only read Marvel through the spectrum of the Spider-Man title, and anything else I'd have to refer to that Marvel Universe reference guide, that encyclopedia that they kept updating over and over, just like they did with Who's Who in DC.
Right, the demon Etrigan.
Right?
It was cursed by Merlin, according to the if I'm going by the cartoon, I don't know how it was in the comics.
No, that's exactly right. They drew from the DC lore. Yeah, absolutely.
Bad things happen. Arthur gets struck down with a sickness. He needs the Grail. Britain needs the Grail, so they go off on the Grail quest. My favorite part in the movie when Percival, because that was Percival's big thing, finding the quest for the Holy Grail. And of course, they're all looking for the Holy Grail, and there's this scene where things get really harsh. And notice how even the armor that's all bright and shiny before it's looking all tarnished.
Yes, that's
almost
great
rusted.
visual way of depicting it. And you could do a deep dive into the symbolic meaning behind the illness, right? Because it's corruption, right? Both literal and figurative, and you get a lot of that from the Guinevere Lancelot betrayal, right?
Yeah, and they know right after. I think he leaves Excalibur. Arthur sees them sleeping, like in each other's arms, sleeping, and he leaves the store, and he's like, and Lancelot get all upset, and it's like a king without a land without a king, or something. He gets all upset. He realizes they betrayed him, and they, and Lancelot felt bad about that. I think Lancelot shows up at the end to defend Arthur in the last battle. I think that happens in this movie, and I guess Guinevere sends herself off to a nunnery, if I'm not mistaken. But I know they're different versions, but
I just thought that it was a masterful way to take something that doesn't have an established canon, that there's just like a lot of Greek mythology, a lot of that sort of lore has boy, it's even worse when you start digging into the Egyptian mythology and so forth. These things over time have different tellings that are not necessarily compatible, and you kind of have to this vision of the Grail, whether it's literal or not. The Grail cycle within the legends.
Lancelot was a priest too. Interesting.
I mean, and that's implied that he
was like a Templar knight then, or did he become a priest after?
After the betrayal, he took a monastic life, just like Guinevere did, because out of guilt.
What happens? I also think that back in those days, because Christianity overtaken, in the old days, like in other societies, this would have been. You would have been do something dishonorable. What do you do? Japanese culture, Roman Empire, things like you take your own life, but that's not allowed in Christianity. So people would become cloistered, and they would, they would take a vow, maybe a vow of silence, go off to a monastery somewhere.
Which is the and I'm using this term, in the spirit it's intended, in the romantic sense, right? Yes. You as a knight, you have a certain ideal, and when you fall short, there is a penance you must do, and you might feel griefed to the point of in Japanese culture and in Klingon culture, right? But you can't in Christianity.
No, you can't
do
that.
The only option you have is this absolutely selling out to God and saying, I've failed. I will do whatever penance there is. I give up all, worldly pleasure because, I don't deserve it,
Aren't there different versions of Who Found the Grail? I thought Trisha was for Galahad. Maybe there is. Yeah, I've known as Percival.
When it depends on, see, that's where it gets really difficult to even say found the Grail. What do you mean by that? There's different versions. Just seeing the Grail, maybe seeing it, maybe having a dream, maybe hallucinating it.
Yes.
It's all a little ambiguous, right?
Look, there they are. I think this is when they were going to meet Mordred here.
Yeah, which
Ugh.
is in a way the result of his own sin, so to speak.
I
Right?
don't remember what happens. I think Morgan Le Fay puts a spell on him. I know that in the Merlin TV series, Morgan Le Fay disguises herself, I think, as another woman who Arthur just has a tryst with. I think this is before he marries Guinevere, but then it's said no,
And
you shouldn't
within
have done that because it was but I'm the king, and it's like yes, but that was your half
Right.
sister,
exactly.
And then we have the big final battle, kind of tragic. In a lot of ways, this is like Star Wars in reverse, or maybe Star Wars like King Arthur reverse, because it's the
Well, and
son that's
interestingly,
evil attacking
a
the
lot
father.
of a lot of diehard Star Wars fans know that the whole Journal of the Wills, the idea that George Lucas had was that there was originally supposed to be this idea that Anakin and Obi-Wan were supposed to have had that kind of a Lancelot Arthur kind of antagonism over, well, who turned out to be Padme, right? The mother figure. And there was originally supposed to be that kind of a love triangle story that led to the fall of Camelot, or in this case, the fall of Darth Vader. And it's kind of obliquely implied in Revenge of the Sith, but it's not really there. It's in Anakin's mind, and it's like that's a shame because that
been interesting, I guess, huh?
Yeah, that would have been a great story that he just didn't really get around to, didn't really do.
But yeah, Excalibur, good movie. We could go on talking forever about Arthur.
Yeah, we really could. We could spend a lot of time.
A lot of different adaptations of Arthur. I know that I think is there something called the Pendragon Cycle, which is being adapted by Daily Wire, I think now too.
Yeah, I think so. I'm very curious about that. Yeah.
I know that there was a BBC British series about Merlin. There was a mini series about Merlin starring Sam Neill as Merlin in the 90s, which I thought was interesting. Who the heck played Queen Mauve in that series? Because in a way, there's the whole King Arthur, Mordred, all that stuff, but the bigger thing is Merlin basically versus Queen Mauve.
Right.
How she was wanting him to be like an apprentice, and he goes off and decides to side with the Christians, and that gets her angry. Because of course, if everyone becomes Christian, then she'll cease to exist because no one believes in the pagan gods anymore, right?
Right.
So
the idea of the end of magic, the fantasy magic in the world.
That's kind of what the series is about in a way. Yeah.
And the introduction of Christianity. And that is a trope that, we're going to start talking a little bit more as we go through in our Live from Sparkwood and 21 deep dive into Twin Peaks. That seems to be implied by the Twin Peaks, The Return, and the whole, the introduction of nuclear energy into the world, and that's a trope that's very even more on point for that series, the aborted series, unfortunately, Carnival, which also starred Mikey Anderson, who played the little man from another place in Twin Peaks.
So I'd be surprised if there wasn't one Excalibur actor that shows up in Carnival. We'll have to look for it.
Yeah, right.
But no, Excalibur, check it out. Directed by John Boorman. Classic 80s sword and sorcery. Frankly, I think it kicked off 80s sword and sorcery. This predates Conan by a year. So, yeah, I think it starts with this and then it keeps rolling after that.
I agree.
But definitely a classic. A lot of great Arthur adaptations, but this one in particular I liked a lot. Miranda Richardson, that's right. She played Queen Mauve on the Merlin miniseries with Sam Neill as Merlin. All right, now we have to come to the modern day, back to the modern day and out of the romance and our very unromantic modern day. First story of tonight is in Remembrance, Tito Jackson of the Jackson 5, right?
Yep, absolutely. One of Michael's brothers. Not terribly, old in modern terms, but 70 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, Tito Jackson, whose full name is Toriano Adriel Jackson, has died. The Jackson 5 singer suffered a heart attack while driving from New Mexico to Oklahoma.
Yeah, while driving. That's wow, you know.
That's harsh. According to Steve Manning, a longtime Jackson family friend and former Jackson family manager, Tito lives behind 3 children, Taj, Tareel, and TJ, and 9 grandchildren. Rest in peace. Were you a big Jackson 5 fan back in the day, maybe?
I'll tell you what, I in a very odd way of coming to them. Yeah, I would say that I was. Back then in the late 60s, early 70s, there was, you guys are going to laugh. You should laugh. A series of I don't know the companies that did them, but a series of cartoons that were, there was one for the Jackson 5, there was one for the Beatles, there was, you know, along those lines. And I used to watch those, and that's how I my first introduction to the Jackson 5's music, to the Beatles music, and so forth. Only to come to realize from talking to my mom, oh yeah, these aren't fictional characters like, you know, the Brady kids or the Partridge Family or whatever. These were real bands that got you know, the cartoon treatment. And yeah, so that's how I came to it. But then, yeah, since then, yeah, been a fan.
Yeah, but rest in peace, Tito. Telling you, we're losing people. This is not good. We're not replacing
it's
them.
inevitable, which is true. But whenever someone dies, well, anytime someone dies, it's too soon. But when they die particularly young, it's like it's worse, you know, like there was some stolen time there, you know.
Oh, I didn't realize this. Samuel Jackson is related to the Jackson family. He's a cousin from Joe Jackson's side of it. That's interesting.
I didn't know that, but then I guess, yeah, okay. You don't assume that people with the same name are related until you find out, that they are. You know?
Yeah, Space Frog. We talked about James Earl Jones last week. That's when we decided to cover Conan the Barbarian. And I believe you, Troy, will be having a double feature on your channel tomorrow, 2 James Earl Jones movies, right?
I am. Yes. 2 that you know, might not jump out at you, but Field of Dreams and Soul Man.
Yeah, so there you go. Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Unless it's a Disney park.
Unless it's way overpriced and unnecessary, like the PS6, it sounds like.
Well, let's not judge the PS6 yet. I don't know why I'm the one having to defend the PS6 here, considering I don't care. But Sony has its fans. PlayStation 2 is a great console, I'll admit that, even though I'm more of a Nintendo guy usually. But Sony has reportedly awarded a contract for the PlayStation 6's chip to AMD, choosing the American semiconductor company due to their strong focus on backwards compatibility. This decision came after a competitive bidding process back in 2022 that saw major players like Broadcom and Intel eliminated from any consideration, according to sources cited by Reuters. AMD designed the custom chip system on a chip for both PlayStation 5 and the upcoming PlayStation 5 Pro. So they were heavily favored by Sony for the role in the development of the next generation console, and no one is really too terribly surprised with the reasons why did perk some ear-ups. Reuters reported that Sony's decision was largely influenced by the need to ensure seamless transition for gamers, allowing them to continue enjoying PlayStation 5 games on the new system. The primary concern for Sony appears to have been maintaining backwards compatibility without incurring insane costs or diverting too many engineering resources as part of that project, so you can play the same games you have on your PlayStation 5 on the next system.
I mean, you know,
that didn't used to be a thing. I mean, actually, Sony has been better about that. They weren't. They kind of got rid of it on the PlayStation 3, but they had it in the beginning, then they got rid of it. But like PlayStation 2 could play PlayStation 1 games.
I think the biggest problem for gamers, that idea that I can't, you know, take the games from my PS4 and play them on my PS6 or whatever, would be, that means the console you're buying is kind of disposable, which I guess is how we've come to think of computers, unless you are actively updating them, which you can with computers, you can't with consoles. That's something we talked about, was it last week or the week before? But that might be acceptable to gamers if the price is right. It was always assumed that these consoles were reasonably priced, cheaper than a PC.
Yes.
But as they're becoming more as expensive,
more
or
like
more
PCs.
so, they you can't think of them that way, and the lack of backwards compatibility starts to become an issue. It actually becomes unpalatable for me to continue down that line if I'm a console person. It all becomes too much.
Why do you think Microsoft created the Xbox?
Yeah.
The primary reason they did, and if I'm remembering the story correctly, I think they went to Sony and offered them some sort of Windows thing for their upcoming PlayStation system or down the line, and said, Sony, no, we'll make our own thing. That's okay. Thank you. And I think that spooked Microsoft, fearing that if game consoles become like PCs one day, then they will, then the Windows will have a nasty competitor on their hands. Yeah. The trouble was Microsoft kind of ignored like the whole tablets and smartphones and things like that. They weren't paying attention to that part of it.
Yeah.
But it's a great thing too, because if PS6 is anything like PS5 exclusive on the console, it'll be hard to come by. All of this starts to make me wonder, do we even need a PlayStation 6? And to that, concerns are growing. The PlayStation should launch at a $700 price point, similar to the PlayStation 5 Pro. Paul Tassi of Forbes suggests that a $600 minimum price seems inevitable, reflecting the increase from the PlayStation 5's model launch price of $500. I actually sort of understood the $500 launch price if I'm going by inflation. How bad inflation is now, I sort of understood why they were charging that. But Tassi brought up a bunch of reasons, such as the inflation-adjusted cost of production, Sony's willingness to maintain a higher price due to less competition from Xbox, and a trend of increasing price of each new console iteration. They all make a $700 launch price likely for the PlayStation 6. That's assuming no disc drive, no pack-in game, and these days, who knows if it'll even come with the power cord and controller. I kid, but...
Yeah, that's the other thing, and just to infuse just a little bit of Econ 101 here, you brought up the whole issue of inflation. These are getting to be tight times for the average and
these
buyer.
are becoming luxury items.
They are becoming luxury items, and the companies are going to need to start realizing this is not a necessity. This is not something people need to live. And when things get tight enough, they will stop buying these luxuries to be able to buy food and pay rent and, live. So you got to start pulling back those prices or go out of business.
Space Fraggle, there's no $120 game. Oh, wait. I think Star Wars Outlaws at $120 tier. Never mind. Ubisoft, Anyway, I don't know what whatever Nintendo has in the works, what it's going to be or what it's going to be called. I'm calling it Switch 2 right now, but it could be something else. They're predicting probably $400 for that one, which makes sense because the Switch was $300. You there?
I'm ruminating on that because I'm like, it could be more when you start thinking about, as you said, things like inflation, the market, availability of chips. There's a lot of issues there.
In the meantime, we have the 30th anniversary PlayStation Anniversary Collection. That does look kind of neat if you're into the old school PlayStation. Did you ever have a PlayStation or see what they looked like?
No,
they were a gray console. They had a gray design, kind of like this. This is invoking the spirit of the original console. It was actually a neat looking little game system. It had like a push down top, which you would put the CD-ROM into, and had gray controllers. And this is very much emblematic of that classic design. This is a version of the Pro and a version of the PlayStation 5 regular that you can get. How do I feel about all this? Let me see here. Sony announces PS1 style PlayStation 5. Sony has announced limited edition PS1 style PlayStation 5, PlayStation 5 Pro, and more as part of the 30th anniversary collection. The collection was revealed in a video from PlayStation below, which also revealed a limited edition DualSense Edge, and PlayStation Portal. Pre-orders for all products beginning September 26th and will be released on November 21st. The PlayStation 5 Pro bundle is likely the most limited edition, with only 12,300 units available worldwide. The bundle comes with a PlayStation 5 Pro itself, a vertical stand, a charging station. You get the vertical stand, huh?
I mean, yeah. Imagine that, not charging separate for that.
It's a special vertical stand, and the DualSense Edge controller, all in the classic PlayStation style. Also comes with the original PlayStation style cable connector. Oh yeah, it's kind of neat when you plug the connector in. It's one of those USBs, but it's surrounded by the old-fashioned looking hookup. So. Yeah. Other consoles appear: PlayStation 5 Slim Disc Digital Edition, but it does not come with a matching disc drive cover. The other console available is the PlayStation 5 Slim Digital Edition. Hold the phone. So there's no regular PlayStation 5 that's available like this?
I guess.
This is just the digital junk. I'm just...
Wonderful.
Maybe the Slim, you can get can the Slim take a CD-ROM drive adapter? I think it can. But then it won't match, will it? Because it won't be the same color.
Right.
I just... Does anyone care? Anyone in the chat interested?
I mean, it's not like I'm going to be buying this. I am not the target market for this. It's not.
Oh, yikes, Geek Flag, you don't like nothing. You were picking on the Switch last week. Whoa, 30th anniversary. The market is finding a niche for 90s nostalgia. You know what? They should re-release Tamagotchi and lava lamps. But lava lamps were nostalgia for 70s.
Actually,
in the 90s.
Lava lamps are still on the market. They've never gone off the market.
Tamagotchis are still available. They released an R2D2 Tamagotchi.
Which
I think I got one for you, didn't I?
Year.
I got you. Yeah, I got you a R2D2 Tamagotchi.
Yep.
I have to say, back in the 90s when they were rare, and that was a good conversation starter. If you had a Tamagotchi, no one else could find one. When I started a new job and I was kind of shy and didn't know anybody, all the girls were like, "You have a Tamagotchi," and they were all wanting to know about it. So, okay. I will buy a 2600 Atari console. Okay. Well, they're re-releasing the 7800.
As a matter of fact, yeah.
And it'll play the 2600 games on it too. Yay. You know what's funny though? A couple of years back, Sony released, like Nintendo did the NES Classic and the Super Nintendo Classic, and then Sega did the Sega Genesis Mini. They were doing all these mini versions of the consoles with like a bunch of games on them you could hook up to your HD TV. Yeah. Sony did one for the PlayStation, and everybody hated it.
Huh.
They put European ROMs of games on it for some reason. It didn't include a single Castlevania game. All the other mini consoles had at least one Castlevania game on it. And they didn't put Castlevania Symphony of the Night or Castlevania Chronicles on it. It was considered a disaster. I didn't buy one. So
I mean, I guess it is a little tone deaf if you don't know what it is that the fans want in the first place. Certain games, if you don't have them, people are not going to be interested.
I assume they didn't put Castlevania Symphony of the Night because Sony had paid Konami to make a fancy PlayStation exclusive Castlevania collection that had Symphony of the Night and Rondo of Blood on it. But Castlevania Chronicles came out on the PlayStation 1 too. They could have put that on there, but they didn't do that. I just don't get it. I don't think there were any Mega Man games on it either. They could have put Mega Man X4 on there. What do I know? Let me see. They should make games on 80s action movies and sci-fi horror movies. They should be making games based on 80s. Well, you know what they are doing? It's a re-release of an older game, but they are redoing a remaster of the Thing of the game they based on the Thing back in the 2000s. I'm
starting to recognize a bit of a commonality here. Yeah. They're re-releasing.
Yeah,
because the new stuff kind of sucks.
Kind of. And I'm telling you, even the kids, they're playing the old stuff. Clue Channel, Castlevania 4 is the height of gaming soundtracks. Love Castlevania 4 soundtrack. Very good.
But yeah.
Why does the new stuff suck?
Well, this is why the new stuff sucks. Exactly. We're getting into it.
Shout out to Smash JT. I heard about this from his channel, from a article from thatparkplace.com. So I'm answering both of them. Oh, you had the thing on the Xbox, Frog. Yeah, their Night Dive is doing a remaster of it. They're very good, Night Dive Studios. They do great remasters. Marina Diaz, an advisor for the Game Developers Conference, the owner of 3 of Cups Games, and head of strategy for BTF Games. I keep thinking that's like back the fuck up or something.
Yeah.
Okay. And recently
Wouldn't
declared
be surprised, actually.
F * white men. In my notes for the timestamp, I'm gonna have the F with the weird symbols next to it. Basically, fuck white men and gatekeepers. Is it white men that are gatekeepers, or is it white men and gatekeepers? Any white men, you screw any of them.
I think they can be both, but she's saying either and or both. And unfortunately, or fortunately from my perspective, I feel that she's actually gatekeeping here, just saying a little bit of lack of self-awareness here.
In a now deleted post, which was shared on to X by former World of Warcraft team leader Mark Kern, is he a white guy? Diaz wrote on X, I went thinking I'm a shitty designer to consult to and train teams at one of the biggest games companies in the world. Keep believing in yourself and white men and gatekeepers. I don't know what their race or gender or sex has to do with anything. I don't.
That says more
except
about
maybe
her.
it sounds like a bigoted comment, but as we know, it's not. I just
right.
She added this.
I think another element where she's lacking awareness is she's thinking how great she is because of where she is now, not being able to see down the road that she's probably not going to be in this industry much longer. The industry is not going to be tolerating this much, and we'll be getting into that in another article coming up.
She added a subsequent post, not all white men suck, but you know what I mean, my loves. I don't really know what you mean.
No, we know what you mean. We know that you hate anybody who's different from you because you're not misogynist. What's the misandrist and a racist.
Yes. Okay. Diaz's comments are unsurprising. Her 3 of Cup Games website describes the company as an ethical, diverse, and inclusive game studio based in London, UK. It adds, we believe that we can help to change the world through games. We believe in emotions. We believe in making games for everyone. But above all, we believe in
all the
games
people that
aren't for everyone. Not every piece of art is for everyone. I like things that Troy doesn't like. Troy likes things I don't like, and that's okay. Nothing is for everyone. There are people out there that don't like Pac-Man still, probably to this day. It's okay. It's okay if you not like Pac-Man. Diaz also made a number of other posts denigrating white men in April. Diaz posts, growing my abs to crush nuts and obvious white men with them. So crushing the nuts of obnoxious white men. Okay. Less than 2 weeks later, Diaz posted why white men over 40 for being somehow generous are allergic to saying the word diversity, usually because it means it's a word that's anti-them. In March, Diaz posted my highlight of the year. Yes, we are only in March, but is Breaking Bahia attending the Game Developers Conference. Bahia is one of those people I admire and respect the most in the industry, and we need more people like her to kick the old white privilege asses. Yikes. Back in May 23, Diaz posted and organized a spontaneous little meetup in Berlin for marginalized game developers. It's been amazing. Hope to do this more often. And subsequent post, Diaz added, I was so tired of the so many cis white men at meetups. Was she treated unfairly by these men? I think she was probably welcomed with open arms. We don't.
Interestingly, David Pensek says, does this person speak for all game consultants and developers? I think not. Yeah, but she probably thinks she does.
I don't know. You can change your positive without making a profit for your company. Well, if you don't sell your games, you're not making your propaganda doesn't work either. So there's that too. In December, Diaz wrote, I think NFTs are just, again, some people wanting to be better than the rest. And I think it has lots to do with white supremacy and dangerous stuff. She's got problems.
Yeah. She's absolutely, you listen to this and when you hear people say, this leftism is a cult, that is cult speak. That's the kind of gibberish that comes out of cult mentality, where they can only see things through their fiction.
Sounds like she's got a major chip on her shoulder. You think? I mean, I don't know what this is about. Maybe issues, maybe daddy issues. I don't know. But how about people boycott this company cost it to hurt financially? Well, basically, we probably won't have to, because I probably wouldn't want to buy any of her games to begin with. See, boycotting only works when you're selling something I want and I decide not to buy it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well,
Rosefire says, gentlemen of the world, I commend you for keeping your cool while companies are insulting you for merely existing.
We have to rise above it.
But it does us. There's no benefit to us to get out of sorts about it. We just go, okay, well, it's like when what's her name said, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. Problem solved. No. Okay, problem solved. Nobody bought your book. And now 2 years later, we're really concerned about, the industry because it's contracting. Yeah, because you told everybody that was your primary buying public not to buy your book, and they didn't. Men, don't come to this female-centric film because it's not made for you. Well, guess what? They don't take their dates to it that wanted to see it, and so nobody saw it.
What I don't understand is why we have to hate each other while there are hateful white men. I think it's a mistake to say that most of us hate women minorities. I agree. Yes.
I'll put an even finer point on it than that, Curtis. Why is it that if you're not interested in something, you hate? I mean, I'm not a console guy. I don't hate consoles. I don't hate people that enjoy consoles. I totally understand it. It's just not for me. I don't watch anime. But I certainly understand how someone could, and I don't hate it.
Yes, I'm not into sports, but I get that there are guys out there that love watching sports games. I'm not trying to ruin their fun.
So the fact is, the people that do this kind of stuff, they're the hateful ones, and they're projecting it on us, like they're looking in a mirror. It's confession through projection.
What I don't understand, I'm going to say this too, as someone who plays games, with the exception of a few people that did get more notoriety, I don't usually pay attention to who makes the games. I just pay attention to whether the game is good, whether I want to play it. I don't care who makes it.
Right.
It's never been on my radar about that. They make a product, so they got the opportunity to call us some Isterphobe, not for profits. Yeah, well, that's I hate in this case. Yeah, I guess that is the case. Yeah, the Clue Channel, but yeah, we had a we're gonna get into Concord next.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely Karl Marx, no doubt about it. Rosefire, it's classical neo-Marxism.
I don't know what country she's from. She was sporting an accent. I don't know, but she hates.
I honestly don't care what country.
Well, it doesn't matter because you have crazies in this country too, so
absolutely.
It doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
But I'm just curious to see if this is a cultural thing where she's coming from too. I don't get it.
Cultural if you assume that this Marxist mentality has become a culture for these wackadoos.
For example, I'm not enjoying the new Lord of the Rings show, but I have a friend who loves it. I don't want to ruin it for him. But
wait, Troy doesn't like anime? Off with his head. I didn't say I didn't like it. I just said I don't watch it.
Oh, please.
I have occasionally had people say, watch this, check this out. And I've enjoyed it. I just haven't, dived down that rabbit hole.
You enjoyed Speed Racer until you didn't. And I'll never forgive you.
It's not that I don't. It's just.
No, we did that on his stream. You should check it out. We were talking about.
It doesn't
rose-colored glasses.
Yeah, very rose-colored glasses. I loved it as a kid. Now it's like it's kind of childish, But then I realized, you know what? If it's like any of the other anime that I consumed as a kid, this is probably not its original form,
Or it could have just been that it was made for kids, and that was the audience. In Japan, it's weird. Japan is weird in that they don't believe things are for everybody.
Yeah.
You have things for adult men, things for adult women, things for teenage boys and younger boys and girls. Like they separate things out by that, understanding this is the market. And they're not saying if you're of the opposite sex or whatever, you can't enjoy something from the other, but that's not what the target is.
Right.
For that audience. And I think we used to have this over here, but we've seemed to have lost that in the weeds.
Yeah.
Concord.
Well, before you go on, and I just want to comment on that. Well, isn't it accredited to Abraham Lincoln? You can't please all of the people all of the time.
No, some of the people, no, you can't lie to you can lie to some of the people some of the time.
Whatever.
All the people some of the time.
The point is that it's this idea of trying to please all of the people all of the time is foolhardy. It is not possible. And that's why this whole idea of dump your audience to try and get a bigger, wider audience, that's killing the golden goose. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Yeah. But
should we turn our attention to Concord? Because that's the gift that keeps on giving.
Let's go to Concord. Concord's director has reportedly stepped down.
Good.
Yeah, I guess it is. Concord was a huge disaster for Sony and was pulled offline for just 2 weeks after its launch. It is reported that Ryan Ellis, the game director for Concord, stepped down after the game was taken offline, and those who purchased it were refunded, as reported by Kotaku.
Talk about falling on your sword, right?
Yes. After this event, the developers at Fireworks Studios are now uncertain of the studio's future, considering how bad the launch of Concord went. I think of Concord. I'm telling you, I still think of the airplane movie, The Concord. I don't know if you ever saw that. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Airport, not airplane. The airport movie.
Airport. Yeah, exactly.
Concord was a premium game in a sea of free-to-play hero shooters, making it stand out from the crowd for all the wrong reasons. The game, also only available on PlayStation 5 and PC, cost $39.99 for players to get stuck into. Ended up getting Metacritic score of 62 and user score of 1.8. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Ryan Ellis has a detailed resume and over 7 years at Bungie, but he has reportedly informed the other staff that his role has changed, although his LinkedIn still lists title as game director. The blog post on Concord's director states the Firewalk team will consider their options regarding what to do next with Concord. However, it's been reported that some of the developers at Firewalk Studios have been asked to explore pitches for something completely different, with some employees refreshing their portfolios in anticipation of potential layoffs. As a result of Concord's failure, some employees have already left the company. The blog post that was revealed didn't really go into any details about what's next for the game or for Fireworks Studios, other than explaining that those who did purchase the game can obtain a refund.
It would be quick, let's say goodnight to Horizon Talker. Thanks for hanging out with us. And related to the previous topic, but here too as well, Nate is saying they're not trying to expand their audience. They're trying to program their audience. There's the problem, Nate. If you don't have an audience, you can't program them. That is the major flaw in their plan.
Yeah.
And yeah, Concord. Oh, what did you say? 1 point. What did you
1
say
point what?
When you were saying what the user score was?
1.8.
1.8. That's, oh my God, that's bad.
Hate ratings.
Oh
Trolls.
My gosh.
Trolls.
Well, the problem,
not legitimate players.
Okay, that's great. Where are the non-existent players then? Are they trolls? The ones, because there's a lot of people that didn't.
They were pushed away by the trolls.
Yeah, no, and nobody buys that.
By the people that wouldn't accept diversity or something. Just
the ones playing Lara Croft. Okay, sure.
The article goes on to say at the end, it would be unsurprising but disappointing if we saw Firewalk Studios developers experience layoffs. But considering how unsuccessful the game was in every market, it's likely that we'll either see the studio dissolve, the staff get laid off, potentially moved to different studios within PlayStation. Yeah. Here we go. This is the big one.
Yep. $400 million.
Were you surprised at this? I was.
Absolutely. For a game?
Now, to be fair, high-end games usually do get, like, I think the Spider-Man game Sony did last year, that was around 200 million.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I'm talking about. This is twice as much. That's a lot of damn money. This would be a lot for a Hollywood blockbuster.
Now that Concord has been offline for exactly 2 weeks today, looking back, it's easy to surmise that it's probably PlayStation's biggest failure in its history, though a new report puts into perspective just how big a failure it actually was, according to former IGN journalist Colin Moriarty on his Sacred Symbols podcast. A member of Firework Studios' development team reached out to him to share some internal details about what went on and what went wrong with Concord. Perhaps the most shocking piece of news in the conversation is the claim that, according to Moriarty's source, Concord cost a whopping $400 million to make. He goes on to describe how Concord got as far as it did and had as much money poured into it as it did because it was a game championship by leadership at PlayStation. Specifically, the newly minted joint CEO Herman Hulse, who, according to Moriarty, looked at Concord as his baby. Oh, so the guy who greenlit this is the joint CEO. I didn't realize that. I thought the guy. Okay, it must have been the guy director who stepped down. I thought he had stepped down. That's not good. He also says that, according to his source, at least internally, Concord was looked at like a franchise that could be PlayStation's Star Wars moment and was called the future of PlayStation. They had it.
Well, I would say this does say something about the future of PlayStation.
I bet they had movies planned, right? You know how like they did the Uncharted movie? They were planning to do a Concord movie.
Oh, yeah, they have almost certainly should have done. I mean, if you put together a narrative style game, you should be expecting to spin it off to movies if it's successful. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that then allegedly played into what Concord fails so spectacular. No one was able to properly critique the game when it was what leadership wanted. Moriarty says it was described as having a ring of toxic positivity around it, where those in charge simply thought it could not fail because they believed in it and their own abilities so much. I think also if you criticize some of the character designs in the game that were not necessarily the most attractive people to look at.
True.
In this game, it's funny. There was some guy on YouTube saying how he would redo the designs and still kept all their ethnicities and everything, but they looked much better. And he was making a point that they were just unappealing. And I think if you said it there in the studio, though, you might get fired. You might get you might get branded as an istophobe. So it's
the Clue Channel says Concord probably increased Sony's ESG score, and that's what matters. Yeah, hold on to that, because ESG, that I'm certain that's what they were thinking, but that's not the winning strategy anymore. We're starting to see it in real time with real dollars.
Boomer, when the Concord game was operating at its highest point, according to Steam, the game only had 5,000 players. It would only take a few whales to have set this over. It could have been maybe like one of Mark Zuckerberg's kid was a big fan, was spending like $20 million a day on it. Come on, right?
I mean, if you've got some commie deep pockets that are just funneling money in, I suppose that could work, but I don't think so.
I wonder if anywhere in the world there is an angry, rich, crazy Asian who is not pleased to learn the nearly $500 million loss. I think the co-CEO of Sony probably was not too pleased about this, who is who I believe is from the Japanese part. This used to be entirely run by. What happened was Sony used to be run out of Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Then they decided to give it over to California and have the California like movie studio side run PlayStation for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think it's now becoming a joint venture again, probably because they're losing money at over fist. Yeah. I wonder if this game had a behind the scenes content. Maybe it did. Just Gerardo.
And I'll say something else about this. This idea of getting a message out, they're getting a message out, and it's the exact opposite message that they want. They put out their diversity and their inclusion and stuff, and it fails. and that continually is teaching everyone who's paying attention. Well, that's a failure waiting to happen. Their marketing says it's diverse and says it's inclusive. It's going to be a flop. Stay away from it. And it tells people inclusivity and diversity are bad.
Yeah.
That's the exact opposite of what you want to be sending a message. It's like I remember when The Force Awakens first came out, and a buddy's wife, who's like uber fourth wave feminist, was so about Rey being the hero and Kathleen Kennedy and
Yep.
women and all
Yep.
this kind of stuff. And I'm like, this is not going to go the way you think it will. And then by the time you get to Admiral Holdover or whatever it is,
Holdor.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, I don't know what her name was. It was
Admiral Gender Studies. I'm like,
they figured out a way to make Diane Lane look hideous. I don't know how they did that.
Yeah, I know.
And then she's on the red carpet for Last Jedi. She looks great, and then she's in.
Well, yeah, even what's her name? That played
Rose Tico.
Rose Tico. Yeah.
Kelly
She's
Marie
a gorgeous
Tran, yes.
girl. But you wouldn't know it from the movie.
That's because they gave her a horrible haircut
I'm like,
and stuck her in a
this is your representation. This is the representation you wanted, showing that strong women have to be bitches.
Oh.
I mean, because that's what all these women were. They were unlikable people. So there's the message that's going out to the world.
CEO Sony saying, why didn't we go back to making Sly Cooper and Killzone games? And to be fair, from what I've heard, this Astrobot game Sony released, I think, is like those types of games. It's like a platformer with a cartoon style robot, which I heard is getting really good praise while this game tanks. So
and Nate is right. I've been following a lot of court cases. This absolutely is companies that make it clear that they're hiring based on race and gender and preferences and stuff like that are getting sued into oblivion. It's not just these $400 million price tags on things that don't make money. It's on top of that, now you have to pay out on lawsuits, settlements or otherwise, because you literally broke the law by discriminating. Sorry, discrimination works all different ways. I don't care if you are only hiring the previously undertrodden, lower represented, whatever. No, there was an equal employment law put forth in the 70s that became law, guys, for a reason, to protect everybody. It doesn't matter who the power brokers are at any given time. The law limits that to protect everybody, because tomorrow it could be someone else, and the day after that it could be someone else.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's just where we are now, I guess. I don't know. What do you think?
Look, for example, Nate, look into Tyson Foods. Tyson Foods is getting beat up.
They deserve it.
Getting creamed.
They deserve it.
Yeah, well, I will never buy Tyson Foods ever again.
Wait, no, we're not. Before we get to that, though, I did want to mention you had him on the thumbnail, so we're going to mention him briefly here.
And I'll just share this with the chat. They can look it up on their own.
With posting the video?
Yeah.
Sungran Studios. Yeah, he made a magnificent takedown of Ubisoft on a 5-minute video. And he's been getting a lot of press lately. He's been having people attack him too because he's standing up for what's right. But he's an independent game developer. I think he also because of all his recent statements, he used to volunteer at a cancer hospital and would play a violin there for the patients, not getting paid for it, just to go in there once a week, and do that.
Sure.
And now I guess because his views disagree with people running the hospital, like the political thing, that he can't do that anymore. Which I think is ridiculous because he wasn't being political at the hospital.
Right.
It's a joke. But yeah, he makes a very good takedown of Ubisoft.
So obviously, political ideology is more important than comforting the sick.
Yeah.
Just
But,
let's be clear about what that side of the aisle is saying, right?
yeah, but I reckon, yeah, well, that's true. I recommend you check out his video, subscribe to his channel if you like it too, and give him your support.
He does
Yeah.
also have a follow-up video to that talking about, you know, having gone
About
through
what
it.
happened. Yeah, that one was actually harder to watch because I felt really bad
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
whole
yeah.
situation. But it's a nice short video though. But that would be Let's Learn from Ubisoft's failures, Assassin's Creed, Shadows, Star Wars Outlaws. Yeah.
But this is why I feel that we're coming around the bend on this.
Yep. So Gen Con fires its entire staff of woke sci-fi and fantasy writers from its writer symposium.
Yeah.
That came as kind of a shock to me, actually.
Yeah, Gen Con is I've been saying this for a couple of years now. They went all in on the DEI leftist BS, and I said I'm going to have nothing to do with this. And that's even as game companies were starting to go, you know, we're not interested in this anymore. We're done. We're out.
It's too much. It's
Yeah.
like it's been. The trouble is, you give them an inch, they go a mile, and they've been going miles for a while. And I think we're just finally getting fed up.
Yeah.
Gen Con has been known for its woke activism over the last decade, miring the convention on identity politics when it used to be known as the greatest table gaming convention in existence. Nothing has been worse in this regard than the Gen Con Writers Symposium. This writing track was supposed to highlight great writers in science fiction and fantasy, but instead devolved into SFWA's political arm. After several years of failure, Gen Con fired every staff member from the symposium to get a clean slate for the following year. You know, we know some writers. You're having one on your stream this Friday. Maybe they
Yes,
should
sir.
maybe
Yeah.
submit their applications for this. I don't know. The Gen Con Writer Symposium is a veritable who's who of SFWA clout
Well,
chasers.
I can tell you this when I have Chad on, he's going to be one of the things we're going to talk about is why self-publish, and I'm sure this is going to come up a little.
Yeah, we should bring this up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly comprised of failed authors who use identity politics to get small publishing deals, but rarely sell.
Oh, wait a minute. For you know, I shouldn't just assume that that people know what Gen Con is. Jesse, thank you for bringing that up. Gen Con,
role-playing convention, right?
yes, it started out as a convention specifically revolving around Dungeons and Dragons, and it used to be up in Wisconsin. It was started by, you know, people in Gary Gygax's you know, sphere. And then Dungeons and Dragons got broken up and stuff, and it ended up moving to Indianapolis, and it started bringing in all the other gaming companies, you know, West End and White Wolf, and you know, Modifius and so forth. And a lot of those bigger companies are starting to bow out and say, you know, we don't. Yeah, back when it was TSR, right? Now it's Wizards of the Coast, which we've talked about. That's a whole other ball of wax. But,
we haven't talked about them for a bit. I should see what they're up to.
Should we really be careful here that Wizards doesn't send the Pinkertons after us for talking about them and Gen Con? But I digress.
I don't joke, man.
But the big companies have pulled out of Gen Con. Less and less people are going to Gen Con. In fact, I've got a buddy who goes to it, but I get the impression that he's on the momentum because he's been doing it for so many years. It's just what he does with a certain gaming group.
Yeah.
And this is their annual, you know, get together or whatever. And it's like, it'll be interesting to see how long he keeps doing that. In fact, I'll talk to him about it on Wednesday. But yeah. So that's what Gen Con is.
Right. So we've explained. And this was the writers' arm of Gen Con, which I guess had been taken over by
oh yeah.
Some fanatics, it sounds like.
Yeah, this fantasy, this writers' symposium for Gen Con is kind of analogous to the Reimagine Tomorrow over at Disney.
Yes, I remember that. I wonder what's going on with that right now. Here one would see the likes of Kat Rambo, former SFWA president, and Monica Valentinelli, a woman who publicly attacked Odyssey Con and bowed out because she didn't want to be associated with a quote-unquote known sexual harasser, which she accused a man with no evidence. Patrick S. Tomlinson, a failed author and mentally ill tweeter who infamously sued an online forum because they made fun of him, is also a guest year after year. Looking at the lineup, woke activism and clout within SWFA are the only qualifiers for being featured guests and getting speaking gigs at the convention. They share so basically became not about science fiction and fantasy writing. It just became about politics. That's what it sounds like.
David Pensack is asking, wasn't Gen Con where Jeremy from the Quartering was attacked? I don't know.
It might have been.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It might have been. Yeah, that was the... I remember when he did a video about that, and the judge, he told the guys, just let the courts handle it. We'll take care of it. I did not like the judges resolving on that. Another con I know nothing about. Okay. But yeah, I guess.
Well, now you're not missing out on anything. Netter and I went to Gen Con one year because I had always wanted to go, and we had a great time. Met some guys there that I ended up, one of them was local, so we ended up gaming with him. It was kind of cool. Netter actually played a game of Call of Cthulhu. I had played it before, she never had, and it was a lot of fun. But we would never go back now.
Yeah. Last on the article, Emily Bell, EDEE Bell, was the one who leaked the news on her Facebook, saying the GCWS committee was informed tonight at the very end of the meeting with Gen Con, with no reason given, that while our show went really well, no people on the 2024 committee will be invited back next year. I will be requesting a meeting with Mr. Atkinson. At minimum, I would like a reason given for our dismissal, because without a reason, I will only have my own documentation to show regarding how Gen Con addressed issues of both race and disability. That sounds like blackmail.
Yeah,
Strong
she's
arming?
trying to coerce them and say, if you don't give us our job back, we will say that you're being racist and istophobe, and you don't care about it. And what they should do is, first, what any employer would do, what HR would always recommend, you don't have to give a reason. We've decided to go a different way. That's all. As soon as you admit that you've done it because of any particular reason, that opens you up to lawsuits. So you just say, we've decided to open it up to other people, to go another route, maybe completely not even do this particular panel, which I think would be just fine. Just make it about the games, not make it about, anything else.
We're going here to have fun, to escape. When you're injecting modern politics, the escapism is no longer escapist.
That's the other
it's
thing
now
to
being
point
mired
out.
in the regular. I don't care what politics it is.
The old time gamers would
go to
go.
Gen Con for.
There was two things you were going to Gen Con for. One was to buy stuff, either the games or the miniatures or the terrain or whatever, which has become less and less at all cons. The dealer's room has become very just looky-loos now, because you could buy everything online these days, especially when it comes to terrain. You can 3D print stuff. The other thing you were going for is to play games. You would go and register to get into a pickup game of Dungeons and Dragons, or test play the new game that's coming out next year or whatever. That's what you were doing. This whole idea of panels, I always thought was stupid to begin with. Now they're just proving how stupid it is.
This bullshit is a good way to wreck a convention. I saw this crap with a con chair a few years ago announcing conservatives were not wanted or welcome. That chair is removed by the board.
Yeah, he's talking about a local con. I know exactly which one he's talking about. We're going to be brief
Disney
on
news.
this one, because I think this one is best covered by WDW Pros talking about this, that Park Place. They do great coverage on this, but we do want to just at least touch on this.
So, Walt Disney World has not yet received initial state approval for its Frontierland expansion project, which would include the demolition of the Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island. The demolition is required to prepare for a land for a Cars-themed expansion.
That nobody
And
wants.
eventually a villain's land in the Magic Kingdom. Well, that's because they love the villains now.
Right.
And the state of Florida has sent Disney a 6-page letter outlining dozens of faults in the initial application, which is related to water management actions that Disney has proposed to allow for an expansion of Frontierland. The state is asking Disney to make modifications to the permit within 90 days. The permit application will be denied. I have a question.
This is literally the fallout of the dissolution of the Reedy Creek Improvement District. When they lost that autonomy, that I personally believe illegal and unfair autonomy, now they have to do what all the other parks, all the other businesses in not just Florida, everywhere throughout the country has to do. They have to get permits. They have to get make sure they're up to codes. It's all got to be authorized and approved by the state. And if you don't, tough titties.
That's what the Audrey 2 said, right?
Yeah, tough
Or Audrey
titties.
2. Oh, Rosefire. This is a response to the last article. Yeah, why can we have fun at conventions? Nobody knows how to discuss. Nobody goes to discuss tax laws, the UN, immigration. You go to discuss Hufflepuffs, Klingons, and Jedi. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But unfortunately, you can't talk about those things anymore without getting hit with Rowling is an istophobe, and Klingons are orcs now, and orcs are not orcs anymore, and the Jedi are the bad guys. You know?
Yeah. This is where we are in 2024. But I don't know why they're getting rid of Tom Sawyer Island anyway. It's a classic, right? Walt made that.
Well, see, this is the other thing. This is a very nostalgic thing for most Disney fans, and this is the cornerstone of Disney, this Americana thing. And of course, that's why they want to bulldoze it and get rid of it. But interestingly, this concept of Tom Sawyer's Island and Rivers of America, we're talking about wetlands here, aren't we? We could end up with some environmental impact studies.
What if there's some turtles that have some houses near there, huh? You can't.
You know, that could very well. I mean, if I was a bureaucrat in Florida, that's what I'd be doing. So yeah, there's nothing that says they won't, fill in the lagoon and pave the whole thing and put up a parking lot, but in the future. But for now, they can't because they blew it. They decided to get political, and now it's coming home to roost on them.
People are saying they're getting rid of Tom Sawyer Island because no one over the age of 50 even knows who Tom Sawyer is. Well, I don't know what to say. I used to have you read it in school, but I guess they're not doing that now. Okay.
No, now they're having you read Karl Marx.
Anyway, moving right along.
Oh, now see, I want to see this movie because I want to see him like go underneath the car and print it on the struts underneath the car, made in China.
And then he would apologize.
In Mandarin. Yes, exactly.
John Cena has signed on to star in Matchbox.
China. Let's get it right.
Okay, okay. He signed on to star in Matchbox, a live-action take on the classic Mattel car toy line. Apple Original Films has snagged the mighty film package that hails from Skydance and Mattel Films. Sam Hargrave, the director behind the gritty Extraction movies, is on board to helm the feature. The project is coming in full throttle with a screenplay by David Cogsall, who wrote the action comedy The Family Plan for the streaming and tech giant, and Jonathan Topper, the author and scribe who wrote the Ryan Reynolds action-adventure feature The Atom Project. Matchbox is the toy brand first created in 1953 and acquired by Mattel in 1997. Mattel competed with Matchbox in the diecast space with its own line, Hot Wheels. According to lore, automotive enthusiast Jack Odell designed the first car for his daughter, who was allowed to take a toy to school only if it was small enough to fit in a Matchbox. When his daughter's school friends too began clamoring for a Matchbox car, an iconic brand was born. That's an interesting story. See, they should do. Is the
Oh,
movie
wait a
about
minute,
that?
wait a
Is it?
Think about that. Think about that for a second. It's about a little girl who wanted a car.
Uh-oh.
Think about it. Think about that for a second. You know.
Okay, I'll make the car pink, and then she, gets a hatchet and hits her dad on the head with it.
I gotta say, when it comes to Matchboxes, I do have some fond memories with Matchboxes. There was a drugstore down by our house where they had like the nickel dime type toys and whatnot, and they had the Matchboxes in this like revolving plexiglass case. It was spin on like a daisy wheel, and you would look at the different cars, and each car had a number next to it, and you'd say, I would like a 25, and then they would look. It was almost like ordering cigarettes. I want Lucky Strike, and they'd pull it for you. It's the same thing with the Matchbox cars. I want a 25. They'd pull the 25, and you'd look at it and go, yep, that's the one I want.
Everyone had these growing up. I don't know if this was Matchbox or Hot Wheels, but I had a Batmobile. Remember the Adam West Batmobile they did as one of these?
That was probably Corgi, but yeah.
Well, maybe it's Corgi. I also had an Incredible Hulk van.
I had a buddy who had that. Was that the one where you could look in the back?
Yes, look in the back, and you can see the Hulk on the inside. Yes,
yeah.
The Hulk fighting somebody.
I didn't have that. My buddy Dave did, and I thought it was cool, the gimmick of being able to look in the rear window like a viewfinder or whatever. But I at the same time was thinking, what does the Hulk need with a van? The Hulk smashes and throws vans. He doesn't drive a van.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe it was an ice cream truck.
This is a great question. I think that would be cool, actually. Hulk ice cream. Hulk want ice cream. Hulk scream for ice cream. This would be interesting if they're doing this the same way they're doing they did Tetris, right? Where it's a story about how the brand came to be, right?
Yes.
Because that's actually a good story.
Yeah, and this would be interesting if that's what this is. But the project marks the latest collaboration between Skydance and Apple. There is more than half of Skydance Productions among them, featuring Miles Teller. So, but what is it about?
Yeah.
Is it going to be like a biopic about the guy that created the Matchbox car?
Or is it going to be about somebody driving cars? Because you know what? We've already got the Fast and Furious. We don't need another franchise like that.
Well, John Cena is in the Fast and the Furious movies now, so that's probably why they picked him. What is it about his dad being shrunk down and he goes into the Matchbox world and all the little race car drivers and little cars? And it's like Ant-Man. It's like being pitched as like Ant-Man.
I think it was Andre over at Midnight's Edge. I may be misattributing it, but I think it was. Speculated that because of the success of Barbie, they're looking for another one, but I can't see this being it. And again, especially not with John China.
Do kids still play with Matchbox cars? I guess they do.
Sure they do.
You used to be able to buy things.
Although
for them too,
I did
like
see a lot of people in here were saying no, Hot Wheels. What Hot Wheels had, I thought the Matchbox cars were better, but Hot Wheels had all the tracks and all.
Yeah,
that
I remember
kind of
that.
Stuff, and unfortunately, the Matchbox cars didn't work really well with them because they weren't made to, right? But you'd try. I did have a Hot Wheels, one of those plastic put together, loop-de-loop type sets.
Who had the tune-up shop? Remember the tune-up shop you could get? Maybe that was after your time.
I know what you're I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember if it was Hot Wheels or Matchbox.
I don't remember either. My friend had it. I thought it was really cool.
Is that the one that had the you could pull it into the car wash and you'd pump the water onto the car?
This maybe it was something like along those lines. I had a friend that had something like that. I thought it was really cool. I had Hot Wheels, but I didn't have any of the things that went with them.
No, Jesse, they've specifically said they're trying to do a Mattel toy universe. They're
doing a Mattel toy universe.
That is their plan. How that comes off, we'll see. It probably depends on how this movie is received, which I'm currently not having high hopes. But the fact they're not saying much about it.
It's Mr. Potato Head Mattel.
I don't know.
Because
I would have thought Play School.
What if the Potato Head movie is about a human that's head gets turned into a potato, and he has to fix it?
I would say that would be a Cronenberg film.
You'll have Adam Sandler running around with his potato head making.
Yeah. Okay, I can see that too. Yeah.
Oh no. And I can see him like pleading with his wife, just
kill
put me out of my misery. And
Slice my
she
head up
puts him in the
deep
oven, and then it's a twice baked potato head.
Twice
You know,
baked potato
she
head,
starts
yeah.
eating the to show her love. She starts eating the
Oh
twice baked potato.
God! Yeah,
You
no,
don't like
no,
this
we're back,
idea?
we're back to Cronenberg. Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
just saying. Potato Head was Hasbro, I think. Okay, it was Hasbro. All right. Do you remember the Hot Wheels make your own cars using crayons? Oh, that's interesting.
I don't remember that. No.
That sounds interesting, though. All right.
I'll Google it later.
The Office returns. Well, not really returns. It's a new Office adaptation.
Yeah, this is Australia.
Australia. Did you get to watch the trailer for this?
I did not get a chance. No.
Trailer's not being well received. My thoughts on the trailer are this. I think it's not the type of show you can do a trailer for, because I think a lot of the comedy on Office is about setup.
Yeah.
So when you take the stuff out of context, maybe. So I'm trying to be generous to this new adaptation of The Office.
Now,
yeah.
For someone like myself who never really watched either the British or American versions of The Office,
right.
My understanding as, a bystander who's never actually watched is that although the American version was meant to be a reboot, remake, American version of the British Office, it has since been established that they're both in the same canon.
Yes, they're in the same universe, I think.
Okay.
Yes. The latest adaptation of Ricky Gervais, and in fact, I think the Ricky Gervais character showed up on the American Office a couple of times as his character from the British Office.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
The latest adaptation of Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant's mockumentary comedy launches everywhere except the United States on October 18th. The Office is back. Well, a version of it. Amazon Prime Video has released a first trailer of the Australian adaptation of Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant's enduring comedy classic series, The Office, and we finally get a proper glimpse at the Aussie variants of Brent, Tim, Dawn, Gareth, and more. With NBC's follow-up to the U.S. adaptation of The Office still in development, global fans of the franchise can sate themselves in the meantime with an Aussie attempt at the mockumentary-style comedy. Just one big catch, though. The Office Australia will be available on Prime Video in 240 countries and territories worldwide from October 18th, except that is in the U.S. There's nothing a VPN can fix, however, if you're really keen. So wait a minute. Wait a minute. This means you can't watch it in the United States?
Apparently not. Not that it's starting to look like, just from the chat that I'm reading, not a lot of our followers would be watching it anyway because they don't seem to like The Office. That's, I think I was keyed into a lot of the same things you guys were saying. I saw clips and bits of the original and the American version,
right?
And it was just stupid people being stupid, and it was that kind of uncomfortable funny. Like, these people are such idiots. I don't like laughing at that kind of stuff.
But it was lampooning office culture.
I get that. I get that.
But I used to watch it. I mean, I was.
But at the same
through
time,
it to the end, but I watched a few seasons of it. Yeah.
At the same time, though, the difference is that I compare it to Office Space, right?
Kind of, yeah.
Office Space was much better, in my opinion, as far as the kind of humor, because you at least had some characters in there that you didn't cringe at, that you liked. And I felt like every character, especially the main ones you were focusing on, were so cringe. That was the humor, and I don't like cringe humor.
Here's what it is with Michael Scott, the character he played on The Office. Michael Scott's the character played by Steve Carell.
Mm-hmm.
You learn by watching the series that he's a terrible manager. It's a show about a paper supply office that's run by a terrible manager. He's not good at his job. And you're wondering, how did he get this job? Later on in one of the episodes, he has to help someone with a sales pitch to this other company that needs to get stuff made, because they basically print paper things for companies, right?
Right.
And he's able to really talk to the person like he's a human being. They have fun at the Chili's they're at. And he says, okay, I'll make a deal. And basically you realize he's actually a great salesman.
Yeah.
He was probably the best salesman in his division. And the trouble is, when you're great, you then get promoted and you get stuck in a job you're not suited for, which is management. Do you understand?
True.
And that's what's kind of funny about it, because there's a human side of The Office too. But it's okay if you didn't like it. Like I said, you don't have to like the things I like, but I enjoyed The Office.
I never gave it as much of a chance as it sounds
Yeah.
like some of the people here did. So I'm not saying I hated it. I just never did watch it because I wasn't interested.
There's an episode where you hear him, like, he's not in the office. Like, where's Michael? Is he running late? And then he calls up Pam on the phone. He says, Pam, come get me. Come get me. And he's screaming in pain. And she's like, what? And then you find out later on that what Michael Scott likes to do, he likes to wake up to the smell of cooking bacon. So he has a George Foreman grill next to his bed, and he'll put raw bacon on it, in the morning. And then when he wakes up, he sets his alarm, plugs the grill back in, and times it for like 15, 20 minutes so he can wake up to the smell of cooking bacon.
Huh.
And then one time he did that, and he woke up and forgot the grill was on the ground and stepped on it with his foot.
Oh, God.
It was just, this is why you don't like the show. You wouldn't want to watch that. Yeah.
Well, and it takes place apparently in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And right now, I am not a big fan of Pennsylvania at all.
Yes.
So the less said about that, the better, because I'll go down a
Office
tangent.
comes from a time when you used to have these things called sitcoms on TV, and they were funny.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we still have that.
No. We're not allowed to find anything fun. You're not allowed to smile anymore. That's racist.
Yeah.
It means you're a
And
white.
Office had a great cast too. And they all look like real regular people too, which I thought was great about it. They were just, he hated the HR guy though. I think Toby was the HR guy.
Everybody hates the HR guys.
And Michael Scott, like, just not kind to him whenever he was on the show, even if maybe he had reasons to say, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing this, Michael. And he was actually, and I honestly think he's correct. He just hated Toby so much.
Jesse Guajardo may have just come up with the next film from the Daily Wire group. What is funny?
Oh, what is funny? Right, that's funny. I'm just saying it's. I can't speak to this Office if it's going to be funny or not, but it won't matter since I'm not going to be able to watch it, so it doesn't matter. So
yeah,
I'm saying some people are picking on the trailer, but I don't necessarily have a problem with any of the cast. It looks like, I mean, it looks like they're going for a similar vibe to the American version. I just hope that this lady to the right isn't a Dwight just switch with Jen.
Well, here's my question. As soon as I hear that they're making the main character female, are you going to make her as much of a blithering idiot as the Ricky Gervais and
From the trailer I saw, she comes off as being kind of tone deaf. Like, she makes some comment like, "Isn't it great, guys? Now we're all back in the office." And the one says, "That's not great," because I guess the idea was they were doing a work from home thing for a while.
Oh yeah.
And now they forced all back in the office, and they don't want to be there. And I think another thing is, like, she says, "I thought you were for friends." Oh, I'm always taking care of my brothers. I mean, sisters. Like, she was like.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna try to be generous to this unless it really comes out and gets attacked. But what I thought was interesting about this article, apparently there have been Office shows in several countries.
Sure.
There was one made in India, one made for Israel,
I'm not
Poland,
yeah.
Saudi Arabia, Sweden, Chile, France,
which kind of makes you wonder why it took so long to get one specifically Australian.
Canada was called La Job. Was the Canadian version French now? I'm now wondering. I don't know. Was it like French Canadian or in English? I don't know. But it's interesting that there have been all these different versions of The Office. I guess making fun of the work culture in whatever country they're in, right? So I don't know.
I would imagine that, culture is different. Surprise, surprise.
Yes.
You go to other countries, culture is different. So humor doesn't always hit the same. So it might be worthwhile to, take the idea and export it rather than actually just showing the show. So
do you remember, I saw Chechnya there. Do you remember on the Sopranos when Paulie and Christopher. Paulie got into the fight with the Russian guy and knocked
Right.
him out, and they were going to take him out to the Pinelands, but he, you know, Tony Soprano conferred with the Russian guy to find out what this guy was all about, and he said apparently he was a member of the interior, and he killed 25 Chechens, right?
Mhm.
And then Paulie refers the dialogue back to Christopher, and he says, apparently he killed like 50 Czechoslovakians, and he was an interior decorator. And then Christopher goes, really? His place would look like shit.
I remember that. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Just no. Different countries, not the same thing. Okay. No Asian version because there's no human Asian office. I'm wondering, was there an Asian office? Let me look. Sweden, Poland. No, I guess none, unless you count India as part of Asia, which some people.
Yeah, I don't. Can you
Yeah.
imagine them trying to adapt that in Japan? That's a very
wow
culture. Yeah.
Yeah, the salaryman culture over there, which all these horror stories in the 90s after the crash of men dressed in suits with their briefcases, and they had no office to go to because they've been laid off and they were just wandering the city for 8 hours to pretend they were working.
I didn't know that, but it doesn't
Yes.
surprise me, Nate. He says in the show Friends they had to completely write new jokes for the character of Chandler because in France the idea of sarcasm doesn't really work.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Some
and I
humor
get
doesn't
that.
translate.
I get
Yeah.
that. That's very well. Culture and language are intimately tied, and yeah, things. This is what I'm always talking about when people say, "Can you translate something into Klingon?" Well, what is it you're trying to say? I could literally translate it, and it would be meaningless to a Klingon. You know,
If I'm going by anime shows I've watched, half the jokes are about panties.
well,
Some pervo guy going after them.
you could probably those probably translate, but not exactly the same way.
In one of the Yakuza games I played, you had to go chase after this guy. Then I thought, what is he gonna? Is he hurting women? Is he stalking this woman? And it's like, what's going on here? And then no, it turns out he's stealing her underwear, and like you have to go chase him down. And, like it's. I forget if she confronts him after you pin him down and like she kicks him or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a whole weird culture about women's undergarments in Japan, and it all stems back to the contact with the Western world,
Of course, where they didn't have these things yet over there, probably.
Yeah, and westernization and stigmatization of certain things. Yeah, it's really weird.
All right, I guess our last story of the night. In a way, this is another comedy series from HBO. It looks like it's going to be another one of these. Maybe is it going to be like a self-documentary style series too?
That I don't know, but I do think that this is. You know, you were saying the other night, or a couple weeks back, you said that the Last Action Hero you felt was like the end of the era of the action hero.
Yes.
And I think this is basically the same thing for the superhero genre.
No, I think the whatever wave of the MCU was the end of the superhero.
But. Well, yes. But I mean this fits the niche of the now we've gone from loving these stories and being inspired by them to mocking the crap out of them because they've gotten so.
Part of the problem with the MCU is they hire Robert Downey Jr. to play Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr. is funny. He's a genuinely funny guy. He used to star in comedies back in the 80s. He was in Back to School, if I remember. The trouble is that doesn't mean like every superhero in the MCU needs to be, and there always has to be this weird humor in every single movie now. And it doesn't always hit. Like in the last Ant-Man they did, especially with one character where he said, I guess I get to die an Avenger at least. He says, no, you're not an Avenger. And then he dies. It's like, that's kind of mean.
Yeah.
I mean, you can at least let him think that and not say anything. I mean, just ridiculous. Okay. There's a situation discussed in HBO's upcoming series, The Franchise, a comedy about the behind-the-scenes struggle to make a superhero movie that sounds rather absurd. A director laboring on a fictional Marvel-like film, gradually realizing the studio brass has changed their mind about the project's creative direction and started secretly shooting the quote-unquote real movie somewhere else while he continues to film scenes destined to be scrapped. Yet this has actually happened to at least one filmmaker working on a franchise movie, according to the show's producers. All the research we did, and we did tons, spoke to so many people. The actual chaos on superhero movies was really surprising, says the franchise creator John Brown of Succession, who made the series along with Armando Iannucci of Veep fame, and Oscar-winning director Sam Mendes of 1970. People think these movies are laid out in neat phases for the next 10 years. Then you hear about a set where in the morning a limo literally pulls up, the window comes down, and they hand out a new script pages. Or producers on set have 8 versions of the same script open, and they go through each script, cherry-picking lines, and then they Frankenstein a scene out of nothing, or the studio sends an actor to the set in the morning and they basically rewrite the day's entire scene to accommodate the last minute cast addition. You would assume that this was decided 2 years ago, but it's happened a lot across Marvel and DC movies, which is, as a result, the writers of the franchise found themselves in rather opposition of sometimes making story choices for their show that were less wild than the real life anecdotes they were hearing from industry insiders. You think, I know this is real, but it seems too silly, Brown said. So we sometimes have to take it back a step because you don't think people will realize it until they know it's true. It's kind of odd, too, that basically Warner Media is funding this, right?
Yeah.
Considering Warner Media with their DCU.
They've been having,
which was more of a disaster than Marvel, in my opinion.
Yeah, they've never actually found their footing, to be honest with you. Real quick, I did want to say for the benefit of Space Fraggle, he said I had a Klingon dictionary translation book. You are correct, Troy. What I would say to that is Pet vi much devme Tibet.
Oh wow.
Curse well.
Curse well?
Yes.
Okay.
That's one of those cultural things that, you got to understand Klingon culture in order to even understand the idiom.
I almost wanted to say that's a lot of words just for a curse, and then the Klingon said, "Well, I guess we Klingons take cursing more seriously than you humans do." That's what they would probably say, right?
You'll find that in a lot of different cultures. What one language might say very succinctly, another language might require a few more words. For example, in Klingon, you wouldn't say I hate you. You would say I love you not.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
And the way you're adding that not at the end literally makes the word opposite. So it's not like I don't love you, it's I opposite of love you, which would be, in English, I hate you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I remember watching a YouTube video before my divorce on how Logan was going to be the harbinger at the end of harbinger of the end of the super. You mean the movie Logan?
In a way, well, it definitely was for the 20th Century Fox superheroes.
Here's how I sort of saw Logan at the time, at least. I didn't look at it as something I had to treat as canon. Almost what you might consider like an Elseworlds. I was saying it was an experiment. Like, there's an interesting line in it when he's looking at the X-Men comics and he gets angry. He says, half the stuff in these comics never even happened, and the other half didn't happen the way they say it did.
Yeah,
so it's like
exactly.
What's true. Disturbing stuff in Logan, though.
Speaking of which, I had actually forgotten that was in Logan. Did you know that in the Silver Age DC canon, the comic book writers in the real world were supposedly writing the stories of the superheroes in Earth 1, Earth 2, and so forth, and the real world was referred to as Earth Prime, and it was they actually played around with that, where sometimes Superman might actually come to Earth Prime and meet Julius Schwartz or something like that. And so, and the question is, and I don't think they ever resolved it in the Silver Age, did people like Julius Schwartz have the ability to change the lives of people in that, universe, or were they just telling the stories of the people in that universe? It was never really extrapolated on. Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to share that.
No, that is interesting though. Oh, I see another
Goes
thing.
with poop. No. Yeah.
That actually is the Klingon response to that. Yeah. No, anyway, I'm kidding. The result is a biting and witty workplace comedy that follows the cast and crew of Tecto, a movie about a superhero who can make earthquakes. The players include an insecure star, Billy Magnuson, an arrogant British thespian, Richard E. Grant, a frustrated visionary director, Daniel Bruhl, and an ambitious new producer, Aya Cash. But the show's focal point is the production's beleaguered first assistant director, Daniel, who desperately tries to keep all the plates spinning and ego satiated while mentoring a pestering third AD, assistant director, played by Ali Defope. The bidding art of the show has to do more with the assistant directors, PAs, and script supervisors, line producers, and crew actually make films and get no public praise for it, says Mendez, while Brown adds, we want to make a show about craft people who are trapped inside a dysfunctional machine rather than a crew of fuck-ups who can't get anything right. So it's an interesting take on movie making, I think, don't you?
Yeah.
A show about
absolutely.
movie making?
I think it could actually be brilliant. I'm not going to assume anything, but yeah.
Apparently, though, I think there's a stand-in, though. The fictional production's boss is Pat Shannon, played by Darren Goldstein, a brutally pragmatic executive for Maximum Studios who declares franchise fatigue is not a real illness and a scam. The character will doubtless remind viewers of Marvel chief Kevin Feige. He kind of looks like him on the show.
Oh, wow.
I saw the trailer, yeah. Though producers say the character is written very differently. Everyone we spoke to said Kevin Feige is an incredibly nice man, Brown says. So straight away as a writer, you're like, that's a shame. Be a real monster and we can go after him. But yet Feige having such a hands-on role at a prolific studio is certainly critiqued. Brown suspects giving so much creative authority to one person is one source the MCU struggle. There's a very thin funnel that Marvel production go through, which is Kevin Feige's brain, he says. All these decisions come down to one guy. I was doing 8 episodes of one TV show, and that was enough to make me nearly mad. Imagine having a slate of those movies and TV shows in your brain constantly while being told by people above you that Rotten Tomatoes scores are down, box office is down, and engagement is down. You would say it's his own fault, though, wouldn't you?
Exactly.
But I did like this. One of the debut season's best episodes features producers and crew members grappling with the studio having a woman problem, too few female superheroes. It's a situation Marvel and DC likewise have publicly and awkwardly tried to address. In the show, the producer's solution is to insert an actress into the film midway through production and give her character an all-powerful phallic weapon from comic book lore, causing online fans to have a meltdown. That's kind of funny. But I don't know. I don't know. Do you know what DC's problem was? Is that they for some reason didn't see the value of Wonder Woman, right?
Yeah, and they like I said, they waited too long with it. I think that would have been brilliant if they had started basically what Marvel did with Captain America, the first Avenger. Yeah, you should have started out with Wonder Woman set in World War II.
I know they didn't want to do that. They did World War I instead. Yeah. You didn't like that, did you?
Real quick, David, I saw that my translation on that comes out something as like student that I give, that's kind of how I was translating that. I'm not sure it was getting at what you wanted, but you definitely have the grammatical constructs. You pluralize students. You use the possessive verb I, him, her, it, them with the v. So, yeah.
Depensek says on a script supervisor rewrites are a pain through and through. Yeah, because how can you keep continuity when the continuity is incessantly changing on a dime? That would drive me nuts if I was a script supervisor.
Well, you first have to accept that there is a canon. And they don't. They deride this as complete fiction, so they feel like they can do whatever they want. And the fans are going, no, there is an established canon, and if you go outside of that, it is not that thing anymore, and we reject it.
And in this case, the canon changes in the movie itself that you're working on. It's like, we established this already, and now you're changing it.
That's right.
But yeah, that's the franchise. We'll see. I'm kind of blasé on TV right now, but this might be one worth watching. I think it's something to be a lampoon. They were originally going to make this about a espionage, a spy film. Then they said, no, we got to do superhero. It's too on the nose with these types of problems, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, I would argue the last James Bond movie probably had similar issues where they were rewriting the script on the first day of filming. That's always good.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe leave it alone. Maybe have a script ready ahead of time. That's what you used to do.
Well, and see, I would even say that better writers have had better planning, right? You know, we keep referring back to, for example, Babylon 5, where J. Michael Straczynski had the whole series already planned out.
Yep.
He knew where it was all leading to, right? One could theorize that the same is true of George Martin, although we'll never know. But I'm going to tell you also, those of you that are following me on Tuesdays with the Blake 7 rewatches, Terry Nation also, he had written the last episode before he started the series. So he knew what he was leading up to the whole way along. And the payoff is worth it. I don't think that enough, and I do feel that not Kevin Feige, what's his name? Jon Favreau. He had his arc planned out. He had it planned out, the whole inception of the Avengers, leading up to the Infinity Gauntlet and the Endgame. He had it all planned out. That's why it worked so well. But when he stepped away from it and other people started to take over, that's when it started falling apart. And you actually see that before Endgame.
Well, there was the Captain Marvel movie.
Exactly my point.
There we go. That's it for this week.
Yeah.
Did you guys enjoy the show?
I hope so. If you're still here, I'm going to assume that
This was a weird news week. Boomer and Troy, I said it before, I'll say it again. We love you guys like a fat kid loves cake.
No, you don't even have to be a fat kid to love cake. Everybody loves cake, right?
Remember Drake's Cakes? Remember Devil Dogs?
Why does that sound familiar to
you? Know what a devil dog is? Next week for good old days, talk about devil dogs. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I don't know what we're doing.
Okay,
Killer Strain, thanks, guys. Oh, you're welcome, JPRPH1. So, we're like the New York Times, all the news that fits we print. I'm sorry. Wait.
I should have.
Sorry.
Is this coming up on
deleted scenes?
Doing this on both. Is this not coming up on both streams?
What is not coming up on both streams?
I think I was only posting to my
doing?
stream. I don't know if it was going on.
How dare you? How dare you?
Well, because
I'm the poster now. Look at it, Agent Boomer.
Because I just switched back. You were yelling at me for speaking in your voice earlier, so I switched, and I guess
you know something. Nice. You're done. Next week it'll be the Geeky Geezers. We'll be doing a deep dive into every single game on the Sega Genesis Mini.
Okay.
Just Boomer.
I'm willing to learn. You know.
I'm gonna show you the difference between the Asian and American variants, huh?
But if you are if you're following us over on my channel, as soon as we end, you will be forwarded to deleted scenes for The Other Side of Midnight, number 69. Nice. I'm a YouTuber, so I'm
funny,
obligated to say that.
Funny man.
Yeah. So if you are on Age Boomer's channel, well, you're just gonna have to click on that link yourself.
Because I don't have the power.
Because he doesn't have the power,
Just subscribe to Little Scenes and hit the bell for notification.
Make sure you share out these streams, because Agent Boomer needs to get monetized so that he can, do important things like forward you to other people's channels and stuff.
At any rate, who made that cartoon Avatar? That was Troy, but I think maybe he had some assistance.
It started out as AI, but I manipulated it so much it doesn't look anything like what I started with.
At any rate, Yeah, we'll see you next week. I don't know what we'll be talking about, but hopefully it'll be some interesting stories. And what do we got going on this week? Tomorrow night, you're doing the James Earl Jones double feature on your channel.
Yes,
correct?
I am.
After first go to Deleted Scenes channel for The Other Side of Midnight, but then tomorrow night you have.
Yep, tomorrow night 8. Well, actually, I think Deleted's got something else going on tomorrow night too. He's got that mystery movie night at the Regal.
Oh, interesting.
With Finn's Corner. I think that's
mystery meat movie. Okay.
Mystery meat movie. Right. Clue. Shoot me a DM and I'll see if I can't help you out. Let's see. So Tuesday night, 8 Central, 9 Eastern, starting with Field of Dreams, and then followed by Soul Man. Both movies featuring James Earl Jones. Then Tuesday, as I mentioned, I think a couple times during tonight's stream, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern, over on Deleted Scenes channel. Well, he's hosting, but it'll be me, it'll be Age of Boomer, it'll be Netter's Network. As long as you're subscribed to all of us, all 4 of us are gonna go bing 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 when we go live. 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern for live from Sparkwood and 21, episode 13 of Twin Peaks: The Return.
Yeah.
Followed immediately after, right around 9:30 p.m., 10:30 Eastern, for the second episode of Blake 7, Spacefall.
That's a good one.
Yep. And it's the one. It's almost like I feel like the first 2 episodes, if it was done in the US, they would have been one longer episode, and it would have been like the pilot movie or whatever, But so that's Tuesday. And then Thursday, over on Netter's Network, I will get to guest host on Netter's channel as she interviews Gary Ambrosia. We're going to talk to him about props and YouTubing and kind of keeping the love of movies alive, I think.
Awesome.
And we'll just see where the conversation goes, but make sure you guys are all subscribed to him. Okay, so I was wrong about Monday night. The Regal. Regal is next week.
Okay.
Not tomorrow.
Okay.
And then blah blah blah. Thursday. Oh, then you stay with Netter. She will shoot you on over to Deleted Scenes for his weekend update to let you know all the stuff he's got going on for the weekend, because it's a lot. And then Friday, what are we doing on Friday then, Age of Boomer?
You're having a special guest on the last call.
Speaking of authors, I mentioned it earlier in the stream, we will be talking with a good friend of mine from high school, who has now gone on to author 2 books in a series, the Keeper of the Sins, about a vampire who works for the Vatican. And he's going to be telling us about those 2 books. We'll probably be watching the promotional video that Netter and I both appeared in. And we'll be talking with him about those stories, when the 3rd Keeper of the Sins is coming out, and what other books he might have in the hopper.
That'll be a good lead into October, vampires and all that.
Exactly my thought. That's exactly what I was thinking. That is, of course, Friday night. Then Saturday night, Netter's Network Retro Cinema, 9 Central, 10 Eastern. We will be watching 8-Legged Freaks. Another good one for the October season, right?
I saw that. Yeah, 8-Legged Freaks. Remember that? That was
it's kind of one of those. It's kind of like a horror comedy. It's kind of it's kind of one of those disaster nature, overtaking man type things. But given that, inspired by that, the following Monday's double feature,
Scarlett Johansson was in 8-Legged Freaks.
Yes, she was. So the next Monday night at the movies will be in keeping with Netter's 8-Legged Freaks Gonna go back and do Arachnophobia again, which she did, like 2 years ago.
That's a good one.
And Kingdom of the Spiders with William Shatner.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm. That one's a little cheesy, but we're gonna do it anyway, just for the heck of it.
Sounds fun.
And then it'll lead into all the Sunday stuff that Deleted Scenes will tell you all about on Thursday evening.
Cool.
And then back here for more of two old farts bitching about the news.
Well, hopefully we'll have some good stuff to look forward to, like more of the poo verse, the pooey verse, the whatever they're calling it.
Yeah.
The maybe there'll be some news on that Sleeping Beauty movie, huh? We'll talk about that. I'll go look for it.
Well, I realized that there's we're at a distinct disadvantage in one regard. We're always talking about the in memoriams, right, as people die. It would be awesome if we could see the future and we could say, today someone was born who is going to become a big star that you guys are all going to love. But we can't do that. It doesn't work that way.
No. Space Fraggle, spiders.
I like
that note, we will call tonight.
Absolutely.
Have a good week, everyone. Take care. Sleep tight. Don't let